everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving deep into the world of U.S. tariffs under President Donald Trump's administration, exploring who really wins and who loses. Stay tuned as we break down the numbers, share real-life stories, and uncover the hidden truth behind one of the most controversial economic moves of our time. Let's get started. U.S. imposes countervailing duties. Who really benefits? Chapter 1. Introduction. When an uninhabited island gets taxed, can you believe that a remote archipelago where not a single person lives with only penguins and seals inhabiting it could become a subject in a global trade war? This is not science fiction. It is the reality during President Donald Trump's widespread imposition of countervailing duties. Trade wars, which seem like the domain of major powers, the U.S., China, and the EU, are no longer just about corporations, factories, or governments. They reach into places no one would think of, such as the Heard and McDonald Islands, located more than 3,000 kilometers from mainland Australia, with no population, just penguins. Illustrative story. In 2022, the U.S. announced a basic 10% tariff on goods imported from all countries and territories, including Heard and McDonald Islands, a place with almost no trade. Although no one lives there, statistics show that the U.S. imported $1.4 million worth of goods from the island, mainly machinery and electronic components. Trade wars not only impact superpowers, they touch every corner of the globe. The question is, who truly benefits from this policy? Chapter 2. Trump's Tariff Policy. The dream of reviving American manufacturing. When President Donald Trump took office in 2017, he made a shocking statement to the global economic community. I will bring jobs back to America. And tariffs became the first tool he used to achieve this goal. Objective of the tariff policy. Donald Trump believed that current trade agreements were unfair to the U.S. American companies removing production abroad to take advantage of lower costs, resulting in job losses and the fire sale of American industries. Trump's solution: impose tariffs on imports from countries with trade surpluses with the U.S., notably China, the European Union, Mexico, and Canada. Specific examples: steel and aluminum were taxed at 25% with the aim of protecting the domestic steel industry. A range of electronic goods and components from China were taxed from 10% to 25%. Countries imposing high tariffs on U.S. goods would face countervailing tariffs at about half that rate. Story 1. U.S. steel plant in Granite City, Illinois. After Trump imposed tariffs on imported steel, U.S. Steel announced the reopening of 2 blast furnaces that had been shut down since 2015 and rehiring over 800 workers. For many people in the struggling industrial area, this felt like a breath of fresh air. They felt protected and prioritized. Worker Robert Gentry shared, "For the first time in years, I feel like the U.S. steel industry is being respected again." The dark side of the tariff policy: who lost their jobs? But the joy didn't last long. Many other industries started to complain about rising input costs. Real-life examples. A truck manufacturing company in Ohio had to raise prices by 8% due to higher steel costs. Ford Motor Company reported losing over $1 billion in profits due to increased costs from tariffs. A nail factory in Missouri, Mid-Continent Nail Corp, warned it would have to lay off hundreds of workers because of rising material costs and reduced orders. Story 2. American Nails. The slow death of a small industry mid-continent used to be the largest nail manufacturer in the U.S. But after the tariff policy on steel, the company struggled because imported steel was its main raw material. Unable to compete with foreign competitors, they were forced to lay off 130 workers in just a few months. The reality is more complicated than you think. Research by the U.S. Federal Reserve, Fed, shows although steel industry jobs increased, the number of jobs lost in Modern manufacturing is increasingly automated, and building new factories does not create as many jobs as it used to. Example: a modern steel plant may only require 1/5 of the labor force compared to before, thanks to robots and automated systems. Tariff policies may create positive effects in the short term, but in the long run, if not carefully calculated, what is gained may not outweigh what is lost. Reviving the manufacturing industry through tariffs is a noble goal, but if it is not aligned with supply chain reforms, labor education, and technological innovation, it is just a temporary rescue. Chapter 3: Tariffs Everywhere, from China to Penguins in May 2019, the U.S. announced a surprising additional tariff list that included goods from uninhabited island nations and even penguin habitats. The question arises, why would the U.S. impose tariffs on countries with negligible economies, or even those with no population at all? Is this a mistake or a well-calculated strategy? The absurd names on the tariff list. In the 2019-2020 tariff list, the U.S. announced countervailing tariffs on over 100 countries. Some of the names were so unbelievable that people couldn't believe their eyes. Comoros, a small island nation in Africa with a GDP of less than 1 billion USD per year. Cocos, Keeling Islands, an Australian territory with a population under 600 people. Heard and McDonald Islands, completely uninhabited, home only to penguins and seals. Even islands such as Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, France, Mayotte, France, Niue, linked with New Zealand, were included in the tariff list. Why did this backward situation happen? This was not a random mistake or systematic. There are three main reasons. Using WTO's automatic country code system, when the U.S. imposed the new tariffs, the list of countries and territories was extracted from the WTO and ISO systems. This system lists all entities with trade codes, whether or not they are actually trading goods. Therefore, even without actual trade, a tariff code still applies. It's like a store listing a price for spaceship bread just to keep a placeholder, even though the item has never been sold. Avoiding legal loopholes. Some Chinese companies or those affected by tariffs may try to shift the origin of their goods through small countries to bypass the tariffs. To prevent this, the U.S. listed even the most remote regions, applying tariffs preemptively to avoid fraudulent labeling. For example, Chinese goods labeled "Made in Niue" and then shipped to the U.S. to benefit from a 0% tariff rate. The U.S. had to act first to block this. Global message: no one is exempt. Trump sent a clear political signal. America will protect its interests regardless of whether the partner is big or small. Including the entire world trade map on the tariff list was also a psychological tactic, asserting America's dominant position and its ability to target anyone if necessary. Story: Penguins and Global Strategy Heard and McDonald Islands. A frozen island in Antarctica belonging to Australia is completely uninhabited. It is primarily a biological research site, home to many penguins and seals. The imposition of tariffs on this area became a media laughingstock. However, according to observers, it symbolized a new form of superpower, a comprehensive preemptive strike, even though there was no actual trade. U.S. media headlines: Trump versus penguins. The trade war reaches Antarctica. Post-checking. Issues: distinguishing real from fake. Many small companies struggled because they were mistakenly listed in tariff regions, even though they had no ties to China. Meanwhile, large companies found ways to exploit legal loopholes. This led to complaints from businesses that the trade war had become chaotic, inconsistent, and caused unnecessary damage. Thus, in the trade war, it wasn't just the big players who were affected. Even tiny nations or remote islands could become Supply chain must tread carefully. Chapter 4. China strikes back. The war is not just about tariffs. When the U.S. struck with a series of tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, many thought Beijing would react weakly. But the reality was different. China responded systematically, strategically, and with great calculation. Not only did China retaliate with tariffs, but it also used soft power weapons such as controlling supply, impacting global value chains, and even psychological warfare. Retaliatory tariffs, soybeans for technology. As early as 2018, China announced retaliatory tariffs on more than 60 billion USD worth of U.S. goods, focusing on soybeans, beef, whiskey, targeting U.S. farmers, a key Trump constituency, cars, medical devices, machinery, putting pressure on U.S. tech giants. Outcome: U.S. soybean exports to China plummeted from over 12 billion USD 2017 to just under 3 billion USD 2018. This was a smart strike. China knew Trump's political vulnerability lay in agricultural states where he had won narrowly. Non-tariff strategy. China's undercover weapons. China didn't just retaliate with tariffs. Several silent but highly effective actions were taken. Controlling rare earth exports. Rare earth elements are crucial in producing high-tech items. Smartphones, electric vehicles, weapons. China controls over 80% of global rare earth production and threatened to limit exports to the U.S. We don't want to use rare earths as a weapon, but if necessary, we have the right. Chinese media. This was a powerful economic technical deterrent. Influencing the supply chain of Apple, Tesla, and Boeing. China is the main assembly hub for Apple, iPhones, Tesla, electric cars, and Boeing, aircraft parts. Delays in customs procedures, increased safety checks, or investment permit delays were used as tools for subtle but deep impact. Promoting boycotts of American products via media and social media. In 2019, Chinese social media saw a surge in campaigns. Like "Don't drink Starbucks, don't use iPhones." Favor domestic brands like Huawei, Xiaomi. Although the government didn't make an official announcement, KOLs, key opinion leaders, bloggers, and state-run media covertly stirred up patriotic waves. Notable story: Tesla's swift maneuver. In Shanghai in 2019, amid escalating trade tensions, Elon Musk made a historic decision to build Tesla's largest factory in Asia, in China, within just 10 months. This was the first foreign direct investment (FDI) project in China to be allowed 100% foreign ownership in the automotive industry, an unprecedented exception. China used the trade war to trap foreign investment, keeping U.S. technology within the country. Tesla benefited from tax incentives, land support, and ultra-fast licensing. In return, China gained access to advanced electric vehicle manufacturing technology. U.S. struggles. Businesses bear the double blow. The tariff war caused many U.S. businesses to pay a heavy price. The cost of components imported from China rose, forcing them to either increase prices or reduce profits. Lost export markets as China imposed retaliatory tariffs, high costs, and time involved in moving factories out of China. Many U.S. companies had to take the double hit, losing market share and increasing production costs. Psychological blow. Beijing plays the long game. Unlike Trump, who often acted unpredictably, China was patient and played the long game. It didn't reveal its entire strategy, but responded in parts, at the right moment. It used its domestic propaganda system to control public sentiment and avoid panic. It bought more soybeans or U.S. products when necessary to maintain negotiations, then tightened the reins when further tariffs were imposed. Thus, the trade war wasn't just about one side raising tariffs and the other side retaliating. It was an all-out intellectual battle involving economics, technology, psychology, media, and long-term strategy. 5. The third player. Who really benefits? While the two giants, the US and China, are busy battling, a group of smart and nimble countries have quietly benefited. The trade war, which seemed to bring only losses, opened up golden opportunities for third countries, developing nations with abundant labor, low costs, and attractive investment environments. They don't need to pick sides. They just need to be in the right place at the right time. The shifting supply chain. The pie is being reshuffled as the U.S. imposed heavy tariffs on Chinese goods. Multinational corporations quickly found ways to evade taxes by moving. Factories out of China, finding new manufacturing partners in third countries, fragmenting the global supply chain to avoid political risks. The global supply chain began to decentralize, creating a golden opportunity for countries like Vietnam, Mexico, India, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia. Case study, Vietnam, the rising star. Exports soaring, 2019. Vietnam's exports to the U.S. increased by more than 36%, the highest among Asian countries. Products like phones, electronics, furniture, and textiles all saw significant growth. Major corporations arrived. Samsung invested billions of dollars turning Vietnam into a global smartphone production hub. Apple, through partners like Foxconn and Pegatron, expanded factories in Bac Giang and Bac Ninh. Nike, Adidas, Panasonic, and Intel also ramped up production in Vietnam. International media calls Vietnam the silent winner in the U.S.-China trade. Challenges ahead. Fake origin issues. Chinese goods disguised as Vietnamese to export to the U.S. The U.S. began investigating the origin of goods from Vietnam. The risk of being drawn into political conflicts if neutrality is not maintained. Mexico, geographic advantage, reaping the benefits. Next door with its proximity to the U.S., Mexico became the ideal destination for U.S. companies looking to nearshore production. Exports to the U.S. surged. Many assembly factories for cars and electronics from China were moved to Mexico. Mexico became the largest trading partner of the U.S. in 2023, surpassing China. India, the rising giant India, also entered the fray. Under Modi's government, the Make in India policy was implemented. Tax incentives, streamlined procedures, land support, etc. Apple moved part of its iPhone production to India, a major milestone. India aims to become a global tech hub, replacing China in the long term. Challenges: weak infrastructure, complex administrative procedures, intense domestic competition. But if India overcomes these challenges, it could become the world's factory second only to China. Who benefits the most? Vietnam. Exports to the U.S. increased by 36% in 2019, with the key industries being electronics, textiles, and furniture. Mexico. Exports to the U.S. rose by 12%, with the key industries being automobiles, components, and machinery. India. Exports to the U.S. increased by 10%, with the key industries being phones, pharmaceuticals, and IT. Malaysia. Exports to the U.S. increased by 8%, with the key industries being chips, semiconductors, and consumer electronics. Bangladesh. Exports to the U.S. increased by 7%, with the key industries being textiles and leather. Strategies of smart countries. These countries did not benefit by accident. They prepared infrastructure, legal frameworks, and human resources in advance. Maintained a neutral stance, avoiding clear allegiances. Boosted international investment marketing, showcasing stable environments. Adapted policies flexibly to global changes. Thus, when two elephants fight, the grass may get trampled, or it may grow fast if it knows how to dodge the blows. The U.S.-China trade war is not just about who wins, who loses between two challenge in balancing strategy and economic sovereignty. Chapter 6. Who is the real winner? When the dust settles after the tariffs, tense meetings, and a series of global economic shifts, one big question remains echoing. In the end, who is the real winner in the U.S.-China trade war? Is it the U.S., the nation that fired the first shot? Is it China, with its resilience and counterattacks? Or is it the outsiders, the smart countries that claimed their slice of the pie? The answer, like everything in geopolitics, is not simple. The cost of the war both sides suffered losses, but in different ways. The U.S. lost the leverage of cheap goods from China. Domestic prices increased. China lost investor confidence, accelerated the self-reliance strategy. What the U.S. achieved: increased pressure on China regarding intellectual property and forced technology transfers, activated the Bring Jobs Back movement, reshaped industrial policy through the Chips and Science Act 2022, making significant investments in semiconductors, AI, and green energy, clarified the boundaries of technological confrontation, banned ASML, NVIDIA, TSMC, etc., from exporting advanced semiconductor equipment to China. The U.S. succeeded in building technological barriers, limiting China's access to core technologies. How China responded: accelerated Made in China 2025, domestic production of chips, machinery, and robots, developed the domestic market, the dual circulation model, sought new markets through the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and the RCP bloc, strengthened ties with developing countries, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia. China gradually shifted from being the world's factory to becoming an independent consumption and innovation center. The world enters a new era, globalization 2.0, polarized but not dissolved. Countries no longer depend on a single supply chain but diversify risks. China plus one strategy. Globalization hasn't ended, but it has shifted from absolute freedom to strategic selectivity. Industrial policy makes a comeback. The US, EU, Japan, South Korea, etc. are beginning to invest heavily in domestic manufacturing. Free trade now makes way for economic and technological security, the rise of a multipolar world. The US can no longer unilaterally control the playing field. China won't be easily overtaken overnight. India, ASEAN, Brazil, Africa are starting to have a significant voice. What does the future hold? The trade war is just the tip of the iceberg in a longer battle. A technology war, an information war, and a race to control the global order. The true winners will be those who build a sustainable technology ecosystem, those who control global standards and platforms, those who maintain internal stability and flexible external relations. In conclusion, as we've seen, the reality of tariffs is more complex than it may first appear. While they were intended to protect American jobs and industries, the consequences ripple far beyond the U.S. borders. From uninhabited islands to economic giants, no country remains untouched by these policies. But in the end, it's the workers, the consumers, and the businesses that bear the brunt. What can we learn from this global trade struggle? That isolationism in a connected world often leads to unintended consequences. Trade wars don't kill globalization, they make it mature. The game is no longer about who is stronger, but about who is smarter, more agile, and resilient enough to survive and thrive in a constantly changing world. Thank you for watching, and if this analysis made you think twice, don't forget to hit